Cyberpunk 2077 has come a long way. This is a game that I've been covering on this channel for the last 6 or 7 years, and there was just enormous expectations, enormous hype. This was one of the most highly anticipated games ever before launch. After The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, CDPR solidified themselves as one of the best developers within this industry, but, well, that tune quickly changed when the game launched, and a lot of the promises, a lot of the things that people expected from this game just wasn't there. And the launch really just went as bad as it could for CDPR, and they've been dealing with the repercussions for that launch for the last couple of years, and they will into the future, as the next Witcher installment has that big question mark next to it. And obviously CDPR is also going to be ditching the Red engine for Unreal Engine. That's also another big question mark. But with Cyberpunk 2077, 2.5 years later, the tune has kind of already changed on this game. It changed kind of more so last year. After the Edge Runners Netflix series released, a lot of people came back to it and realized that Cyberpunk 2077 actually is a pretty good game. Obviously, it's never going to reach the expectations that it had before launch, but it still is a good gameplay experience with a great story, great characters, and CDPR has been kind of just steadily improving the game the last couple of years with a ton of free updates, and obviously it seems like patch 1.7, which is going to be coming in the next couple of months, is going to be a huge game changer, and that actually is kind of part of Phantom Liberty that's not being talked about enough. And a lot of interviewers, a lot of previewers who got to play a little bit of Phantom Liberty and got to talk to CDPR, they're kind of surprised that this isn't getting the attention, because it almost seems like Cyberpunk 2077 is getting 2.0, a big gameplay reboot of sorts. And in multiple interviews, we have tons of information about all of the changes, and also further information on Phantom Liberty that gets me extremely excited. Because yes, this game, Cyberpunk 2077, is getting one big last hoorah coming towards the end of September. Patch 1.7 is its own standalone thing, but all indication is that it's probably going to be launching right around that same time that Phantom Liberty does. So there's just tons of reasons to be excited for Cyberpunk. And if you haven't played the game yet, it seems like a lot of previewers are saying now is the time to actually wait. Don't jump in yet, because a lot of the changes that are going to be happening to the game are game changing, and there's good reason for you to wait. Now, we go to this article from VGC, which goes in depth with a lot of the changes, because Pavel Sasko, one of the lead developers on Cyberpunk 2077, goes in depth about a lot of this. He says, virtually no system of the original game has been left untouched. All the core main systems of the game have been redone or updated in a major way. The biggest ones are the perks and skill trees, which have been rebuilt completely, and the next one is we've added vehicle combat, which enables new car chases. So they're giving the open world a little bit more variety, something that the base game was missing. We've also greatly expanded AI and completely redone the police system, which is rebuilt from the ground up and now has multiple levels with multiple archetypes of enemies who will chase you. It's also different in Dogtown compared to Night City. We've also redone the loop and whole progression of the game. The difficulty curve is different, the tiers and drops of loot is different, the archetypes of enemies has been redone for more variety. Those are the core things that we've changed, and if you look into it, there are very few systems that we did not change or update. Even the UI and UX has been greatly updated, and some of the gameplay that is on the screen that has been released to the press actually shows some of the changes that have been made to the UI. We've also looked at the criticism, for example, of the open world. When you play the base game versus Phantom Liberty, you will see the difference. For example, there are car chases that happen dynamically when factions fight. AI improvements mostly extends to enemies. Your followers, like you saw with Agent Reed in the demo, can also use it, but pedestrians are mostly bug fixes. So definitely it seems like CDPR took to heart the criticism of the open world being lifeless, and they've added tons of new content, and it seems like there's some radiant activities that happen. But one thing that gets me excited is the fact that, yeah, there's going to be just factions fighting in the open. It seems like some of these ideas were in the base game and the coding. It just doesn't seem like CDPR was able to really go in depth with a lot of this and actually, make it a core feature or make it a feature at all. But now, since they've had the time, the game launched again, remember, 2.5 years ago, they've had the time to build this system up and implement it. But he does go in depth, Pavel Sasko, with more of the systems that are being changed, such as cyberware. It has been completely redone, for example, with a new capacity system indicating how much cyberware your character's body can take before it sends them cyber psycho. So yes, it seems like one big inspiration may have been Edge Runners. We saw this in a separate interview with the Phantom Liberty director talking about this. He said you can now do the strong solo where you can pick people up and throw them at other people. You can be a cyberware-clad freight train who just charges through people, bam, 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 and they're just out of your way. You can jump up in the air and dash in the air. You can block bullets with your katana blade, reflect them into headshots, a lot of different finishing moves now for melee, a few of them. And then he goes on, he says, we have a new cyberware capacity thing where ultimately the more cyberware you slot, the farther you go up in your capacity. And the director uses this as a chance to joke with a less than subtle hint, and then if you kind of push the edge of that capacity, you might run over the edge. Edge run over, edge runner, edge runner. So yeah, you can play with the risk reward about going too far with too much cyberware. The spirit of it was all the fantasy fulfillment of what is it like to have cyberware. And that is very interesting, getting that close to cyber psychosis, what that will mean, the negative gameplay effects. I'm very curious if it's actually going to be something, you know, substantial, something to actually think about while you're making your character or building your character up. Now, getting back to the original VGC article, he says, all skill trees have been changed to focus on giving players actual abilities that they can use in the game, rather than the stat boost changes featured in the original game. For instance, one will add a new dash move, another will allow players to deflect bullets, pretty much what the game director had mentioned in that separate interview from Eurogamer, or perform execution finishers. Modifiers around each skill allow players to further power up these abilities. In addition, there's a new unique relic tree. This is something that we talked about right around the time that the game launched, that there was a little bit of a hint that there was going to be a new skill tree, and in fact it is real. And the relic tree comes with upgrades that will allow further twists to the cyberware that you have installed, such as by adding new abilities to your mantis blades. So this tree seems to be something that is more focused on your abilities and making them, I guess, there's new things that you can add on to them. These skills require unique relic points to upgrade, which are found by exploring Dogtown. In addition, CDPR says it's introduced to give more players things to do in the sandbox, a common criticism at launch. So again, more things to do within the open world, more reasons to explore. Now, vehicle combat, it has been totally rebuilt. Players now have more options to battle enemies while driving, or even use weaponized vehicles with cannons or guns mounted on board. The changes also extend to how players will obtain cars in the game via new courier missions. We put a lot of work into vehicle combat, says Sasko. You can aim your handgun through the windshield or windows. There are also weaponized vehicles with Gatling guns or rockets that you can actually use and shoot. There has been some indication that some of the previous vehicles that exist in the game have been overhauled to add some like cannons and weapons to them. It's going to be very cool to see how all of this looks, but yeah, just tons of new content, new ways to play Cyberpunk 2077. And as Sasko actually says, some of the cars in the base game will be updated and weaponized, whereas others you can just open up doors, like from our original CGI trailer where V was shooting out of the door. On motorcycles, you can use your katana, which is just insane to think how that's going to look. But vehicles also now have weak spots, like their charging ports. A fixer, they say Mama Wells, but I think they're talking about like Wakako or somebody else. From the base game will now have vehicles marked across Night City that you can steal. However, there will be certain objectives that you need to complete, such as by stealing it without any damage while you're chased. So some further reasons to play around in Night City and gain new vehicles. There are many variants of that quest, like having to follow a car and hack it remotely to steal it. This activity is infinitely repeatable, a Radiant quest, because players complain that they were not able to obtain all the cars in the original game. That's another thing that we've overhauled. Cars are no longer purchasable from fixers like in the base game. Instead, Mama Wells, I'm not sure if he's referring to somebody else. I think he's talking about Wakako, but maybe Mama Wells is a fixer now. She has a website in the game where they add more cars, and some of them are weaponized. Now, for whatever reason, CD Projekt Red appears to have undersold the sheer amount of content being charged or added with Cyberpunk's expansion. We've not even mentioned the new airdrop activities, which see random loot caches dropped on the map and a race to secure them. So it seems like maybe other factions will come about, just more gameplay encounters that we can have Night City, more things to do within Night City, which is great. Now, the developer says it's still discussing the exact details of when and how base game owners will receive the new systems, but that its intention is to deploy them for free. Again, this is patch 1.7, and again, how much is going to be just included within Phantom Liberty and patch 1.7, it seems like CDPR is still debating that, but you can assume like the police system and a lot of the overhauls to the various systems within the game will probably be included as free, but we'll see. CDPR probably will give us updates on that, I think, relatively soon. Now, additionally, we got further information coming from Gamespot about some of the big changes coming to Night City. They actually titled this article, Phantom Liberty Rewrites Cyberpunk 2077's DNA. And some of the things that weren't included in the VGC article but are mentioned here is the fact that armor is tied to your cyberware rather than clothing now. This means that you can wear whatever you want without worrying about your overall defense and combat effectiveness. A very interesting change, one that isn't too surprising. They've been iterating on this system for quite a while, the clothing in general, and it's something that I think a lot of people, it makes sense. Now, they also talk about the NCPD and go more in depth. They say that Phantom Liberty brings with it the long-awaited revamped police and notoriety system. At launch, 2077 was derided for its simplistic and unfair notoriety system. Police would spawn instantaneously and in random locations, even if there was no police nearby. That is not the case in Phantom Liberty. Now, similar to GTA 5, if you commit a crime, the police will investigate. If you're nearby, they will engage. If not, they will search the area. As you commit more crimes in quick succession, they will get more aggressive. And if you hit a 5-star wanted level, max tac, a SWAT-like special forces unit in the Cyberpunk universe will show up. Sosco told us that bosses will spawn in the world if you get your notoriety high enough. That's very interesting. I do wonder what these boss fights will look like. However, police aggression is also dependent on your location. They'll be much quicker to respond in wealthier, more populated areas like Corpo Plaza, which again, it fits the Night City and the universe, and I actually kind of love that. But yeah, Night City is definitely seeing a lot of changes across the board. A lot of stuff that CDPR actually really didn't talk about, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't spend some time during the Xbox Game Showcase or even Summer Game Fest talking about this, but all of these changes are very much welcome. Now, while we have been discussing quite a bit about the gameplay overhaul that is coming to Night City, I want to pivot a little bit towards the Phantom Liberty story content that we have learned. The Xbox Game Showcase reveal showed quite a bit about Phantom Liberty, the setup of it. You know, the president of the NUSA, her spacecraft is shot down, and we're hired on very fast to help save her, and then a bunch of political intrigue happens. It's a spy thriller, and it seems like this DLC, how long it is, it's unclear. I'm guessing somewhere between 10 and 20 hours. Within the Eurogamer article, the game director of this DLC was asked about this, and he said that the DLC overall, it's big. It's big as an expansion. It's a healthy expansion. We're not going to throw some specific numbers down, but because, you know, people play in different ways, but we've got a lot of content, a lot of side quests. We've got a new layer to how the overall world works, which is very difficult to measure because it's a lot of dynamic activities all over the place. Now, on the actual Cyberpunk website, we have like a synopsis of this DLC. The objective: enter the shadowy world of spycraft and become a government secret agent, infiltrate high security buildings, take out enemies, and go toe-to-toe against seasoned professionals. Espionage is a high-risk game, and failure isn't an option. Choose your allies with care as you unravel the secrets at the heart of this expansion. And then the location: watch your back in Dogtown, a ruined city within a city ruled by a trigger-happy militia. Its crumbling structures hold secrets and opportunities that can only be seized by those willing to do whatever it takes. Within its walls, discover high-octane gigs and quests with stakes like never before. And as you can see, we do have some new screenshots. I'll show them on the screen right now. Some of Johnny, some of Solomon Reed. And then we have abilities and gear. Power up with a new skill tree, the Relic one, and craft a unique playstyle. Use every new weapon and piece of cyberware at your disposal to survive in a fractured world of desperate hustlers, cunning netrunners, and ruthless mercenaries bent on profit and power. And yes, I'm very excited about this new mech enemy. You saw that within some of the gameplay. It looks very exciting. And I just love the fact that we're going to be getting more variety. That is something that has been missing from Night City, not necessarily in terms of the open world, but with enemies. And I'm very excited about this. Now, we did get some dossiers, which is some character information. Myers, she is the former CEO of Militech and the current president of the NUSA. Currently in her third term, Myers is in the unenviable position of running a country at a time when power is wielded by corpos. While traveling on the Space Force One, Myers crash lands in Dogtown, triggering a power struggle with far-reaching consequences. And that is something that we're seeing in all the previews, all of the gameplay that has been released so far. We're just seeing the starting point of this DLC. Now, Songbird, a talented netrunner and President Myers' right hand. There aren't many people who keep up with her abilities. Songbird's talents make her a valuable asset to the NUSA, one of the country's needs on its side to defend the nation's precarious position. Leaving her post is not an option. And then Solomon Reed. He is an experienced FIA agent who's proven himself on countless times in covert intelligence missions. He knows better than anyone how to tap into the countless webs of spies and netrunners, how to extract information, and how to break into even the most tightly guarded places. His loyalty and sense of duty is difficult to shake. And then Alex. She was once an inspiring braindance actress. Alex was recruited the NUSA's Federal Intelligence Agency, I guess it's this world's FBI, by Solomon Reed, a talented shapeshifter. She also happens to have a mean streak that her time in Dogtown did nothing to temper. But as long as she's playing a part, her true personality won't peek through. And with a character like Alex, and you could actually maybe include Solomon Reed within that, but I do wonder if they are new additional romance options. Within the base game, there's a couple of them. You have Panam, Judy, River, Carrie. I guess you could also include Rogue and Meredith, and there's a couple other smaller flings and stuff you can have, but I really did dig those extensive quest lines that were attached to them, and I do wonder if Phantom Liberty plans to include those once again, and maybe even some of our past romances. Will those continue within the expansion? This is something that has not been said by CDPR. I don't think they've been asked, but I do hope that they continue with that type of stuff because it really did work within the base game. And honestly, I think many would argue that it was better than the base story, these character-focused quest lines. And then Hansen, who seems to be the overlord of Dogtown. Colonel Hansen rules Dogtown with an iron fist. He carved out this patch of land for himself during the Unification War and intends to keep it with the help of his loyal Bargist soldiers. Hansen's military background doesn't mean he favors violence as a solution. His keen intellect and strategic foresight makes him a formidable foe. And we did learn some more information about Phantom Liberty's Dogtown from this WCCF Tech interview. Dogtown does have sub-districts within it. Hansen has control over all of them, but it's broken up within 3 areas like the upper district, the main kind of strip, and then the lower district. There's citizens in Dogtown, there's also outcasts in Dogtown, and of course there's Bargist, his military militia that's throughout downtown. For those who are planning to start a new playthrough for Cyberpunk once Phantom Liberty does release, it is worth mentioning that this DLC comes a little bit later in the game once you have access to Pacifica and meet the Voodoo Boys in that region. And we also did get specs for this. It looks like you're going to need 70 gigabytes of space, so this does appear to be a massive expansion, and the necessary requirements here are on the screen. Nothing too surprising, but I will say if that you want to get the maximum out of this, especially on PC, boy oh boy, you better have invested into your graphics and your overall PC. And one more thing that actually does get my attention about Phantom Liberty and gets me a little bit more excited is the fact that CDPR has been listening to the criticism with choices and consequences. And it was said that within this preview, consequences in particular were being heavily emphasized. And a specific moment is mentioned in the first hours of this DLC with the president. A couple of random dudes try to burst in. We have a choice to make: fight them or attempt to bring them around, calm them down, and I'm told they'll set up a little community there that builds over time. I say I'm told because despite wanting to talk to them, I accidentally walked too close and they freaked out and opened fire, so now they're dead. Now, how substantial these consequences will be on the narrative of Phantom Liberty, it is unclear, but I'm definitely excited that CDPR has heard that criticism and they're listening, because that was something that a lot of people did critique with the story of the base game, and I definitely feel like Phantom Liberty, they've already talked about it, there's going to be different endings. Hopefully there's other ways that we can impact the story, not necessarily just the ending, but the actual entire story of Phantom Liberty. Now, if you did watch the Xbox Game Showcase, you probably already saw this, but there are are pre-order bonuses that were announced. There's a new vehicle, Quadra Vigilante. There's also a couple of other goodies, some new items if you own certain games, such as like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt or Gwent. So that's kind of cool, I suppose, although you do know my feelings on pre-ordering games. I will say that I am excited for Phantom Liberty. I think that this expansion looks great. Everything I've heard from the previews, although it's only like an hour or so that all of these people got to play with it, but so far so good. And what makes me so excited is to see how this narrative plays out. It got me really intrigued when CDPR throughout these previews was really mentioning the point that you really can't trust these characters. You don't know their motivations, and seeing all these different ones, the new ones play out. We have Salman Reed played by Idris Elba, there's Songbird, Kurt Hansen, and seeing how all this comes together with our ultimate goal of saving the president of the NUSA. It's the political intrigue that was missing from the base game, and I'm just honestly so excited. But what do you make of Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty and the upcoming update 1.7? Let me know down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.